Greetings, folks. Good evening, good evening. Like in the movie Lion King, I think Rafiki said, "It is time." So it is time for us to get started tonight. I want to welcome everybody back. It is a plum pleasing pleasure to be here again, and I want to thank everybody for their gift of time for joining us tonight. This is part two um, of our Carolina Middle School Town Hall Call to Action. So again, this evening, I just want to say thank you. I do want to say before we get into the presentation that Dr. Calveric sends her greetings and salutations, being that she actually had to teach her University of Richmond class tonight. She couldn't get out of it, so she's modeling being a lifelong learner, so we appreciate her. Also, Dr. Jawanda Rollins-Fells is a little under the weather, and she doesn't know what she has, but she didn't want to spread it. So she just wanted, both of them wanted me to let you all know that they will be tuning in and checking out our minutes from our meeting tonight. Just want to go over our objective for this evening. Again, facilitate meaningful and open two-way communication that supports information sharing, stakeholder input, and school improvement. We always want to be in a mindset of growth, whether it's academically, whether it's socially, emotionally, behaviorally. We always want to be growing. Also, we know tonight we're think outside the box. We have to create a culture where we can make mistakes without losing our dignity. None of us are perfect, but we have to create a culture where if we make a mistake trying to do something innovative and creative, we have to create a culture where it's going to be okay if it doesn't go 100% the way that we plan. So I made that a point because we will be scared and we will be fearful to do courageous things if we fear what happens if it doesn't work. So that was a message that I shared. I wanted to share it here because I believe in that. And I know that if we can do some courageous things and, again, turn to each other and not on each other, I know that we can not only change this school but change the community. Okay, so I just want to put that plug in because that's the message that I shared in Boston, sharing the greatness that all of us and all of you are doing here in Carolina. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and turn it over to our leader, and that is Mrs. Griggs. Thank you, Ms. Griggs.
All right, good evening. And first, thank you for attending. A lot of these faces look familiar and attended the first time. And if you invited folks that join us later and they're able to jump into the group activity, even better. So again, thank you, thank you. We did want to provide some updates on a few things as well as accomplishments and in the works things just from this last meeting, which was about almost 3 weeks ago. So 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ago. So at that meeting, it was discussed that school phones were not being answered. That was a huge concern. We wanted to just kind of give you a follow-up and an update on that. Those ring volumes have been monitored consistently high. Obviously less complaints due to that now that we can hear those, and it is set to roll at a certain rate to a different phone so that it goes to somebody else that may not be on the other line. So sometimes when folks call, if they're on the line, they can't answer that because they're helping another parent or guardian or someone calling with a need, and it doesn't roll, then they don't get the opportunity to speak with somebody. Now it does, so they're able to do that. Just wanted to follow up on that. eHall Pass, we also put out in a newsletter the benefits of eHall Pass and some of the things that had been concerns in the past that have now been solved because of that. And we listed that in our newsletter, as well as helped the staff by reminding them about figuring out a system that works in their class as far as timing out the passes. When students come back, it's imperative that the staff member checks them back into the classroom so that it then frees up a space in that restroom, in that hallway for the students to go to. And sometimes when the staff is teaching or working with a small group, that may not be the first thing that they think of. So just some of those constant reminders, making sure folks have a protocol in place that works best for them, because what works best in a science lab situation may not work best in a small group setting in an English class. So we just encourage them to determine the best route for that. Additionally, student accountability and a sense of belonging, and offering things to students that maybe don't typically engage, because not everybody's an athlete or not everybody's wanting to do the National Junior Honor Society or something like that. So we have created a Brave Spotlight now in the newsletter for the last 2 weeks that has been pushed out, and it's just under my message and with helpful hints or tips for the community. So those two places are where we posted the eHall Pass and then any Brave Spotlight that the 4 teams are working on. Going back to what Dr. Monroe said about failing forward and being courageous with innovative and creative ideas, if they don't work, the point is to monitor and make sure that we're adjusting along the way. So maybe that initial idea didn't work, but then we can sit back and adjust whatever is. So with that Brave Spotlight, these teams are working on those very innovative and creative ways to problem solve, which we'll have a chance to have discussion tonight, and also problem solve around some of your passion areas and trends from last time. And we will add those to our Brave initiatives so that we have teams of teachers here working weekly and monthly and then quarterly on those exact action plans. And then staff training and support was also a concern. There were a couple of families that brought up the overwhelm and some of the stress level that the teachers are under this year with coverage and lots of planning and prepping for these things, and just some student behaviors are a bit overwhelming. So we wanted to spotlight that we do implement Kagan here, and all of our staff was trained over the summer for 3 straight days. And in addition to that, instead of just saying, here's 3 days of training, go do it, we give them feedback in our observations, as well as their work with our specialists, our division specialists at all the contents have one. We also have math coaches and reading coaches available, and admin that attend their planning meetings weekly. So those are some of the supports we're putting in place for student engagement. This past week, CMS had the opportunity to have Kagan coaching from the company. So a lady came. She is lovely. Debbie Young joined our team for 3 days, and she went to almost every single teacher in the building and had a one-on-one coaching moment with that engagement structure that they had been trained on over the summer. The staff feedback from it was positive, and she then met with the staff after school yesterday afternoon for about 40 minutes, modeled another structure, and then gave us basically the summary of our outcomes of the coaching with the staff. So that was encouraging and very motivating to continue on with those structures that we learned about. And then we are currently brainstorming other options for coverage to alleviate some of that for our teachers having their planning time used for coverage. Yes. Sure, yes. So we were also blessed with, I know several of you probably watch the school board meetings that are aired on YouTube or attend them in person. And in October, we were blessed with an additional FTE for CTE position or an encore spot, as well as a social studies and science. And we have secured a qualified and will be provisionally licensed teacher for that social studies spot, and they start just in about a week and a half. So we're excited to welcome that person on board. That'll alleviate some class sizes, which in turn impacts so many things: student behavior, student learning, and a lot of the things that you can do with students in a smaller class. So we're excited to do that. And that person will bear multiple content preps, so it will alleviate at all grade levels, which is going to be nice. It won't just go to one grade level. So we did want to make sure that we were sharing, as I know there is a lot of question about kind of how discipline and behaviors are handled around the division, but specifically the middle school. So we do have a process and protocol in place that if a student misbehaves in a classroom or makes a poor choice in a classroom, if it's a minor behavior that is something that can be repeated a few times, the teacher typically applies intermediate consequences: phone calls, lunch attentions, reteaching moments, and things like that. However, it gets to a point where that's just not working, and sometimes they have to submit an office discipline referral. At that point, the administrator for that grade level, or a team of administrators if that's necessary, then begins to apply consequences based on what it is that's reported. And each different behavior is addressed differently, and there is a variety of consequences that can go with a variety of different behaviors. So as you can kind of hear, what I'm saying is it's very gray, but at the same time it's very linear and consistent. So we have to take into account each specific situation and the details that go along with that situation. If it is something that is immediately escalated to a major thing, I'll use the example: if you received my communication around 3:30 this afternoon, we had some unfortunate behavior in a specific theater class that's against code of conduct. It's prohibited. It's vandalism, and which ended up having a privilege of being a participant in a play taken away. So with that being said, as soon as that was reported to us at the end of last week, we were able to then begin questioning students, looking into trying to track as much as we could with cameras, and investigating with interviews and meeting with students and other staff members that may have seen something. With that, we were able to procure some information yesterday that has given us a little bit more lead into where to kind of look and go from here. So with that being said, those students then get the consequences in conjunction with the code of conduct for that behavior. And that can be a variety of things depending on what we find out about each person's involvement in that. So that's just one of the examples of how, that's being applied, the code of conduct. In addition to that, same thing with any aggressive behaviors. If there's a fight, we do the same thing. We follow that process. We have to ask students why and get to the root of the cause, because there may be some other students involved in those types of behaviors that need a different consequence because of their part in it. So it does take a lot of questioning. It does take a lot of investigating and looking into each specific situation differently, because it may not just involve two people that decided to make a bad choice in front of some other students. It could actually have 10 students involved, and they're involved in a variety of different ways. So we do follow that process, and we have consequences that we follow accordingly in that person's specific part in the behavior. So there's a variety of restorative and punitive consequences applied. It is not always just a punitive consequence. Those are important because a lot of times those deter future behaviors, but we also want to reteach the behavior that we want them to do, which is the important part that sometimes is missed. And that is very, very, very important to the administrators at CMS. So we offer detentions, ISS, OSS, and revoke privileges. Those are some of those punitive consequences that deter student behavior from happening again. They don't feel good. Students don't like having their privileges taken away. They don't like doing suspensions or in-school or after-school detention. But then we can also apply restorative consequences such as community service, mediation, providing resources from the community. Sometimes students engage in behaviors because they're embarrassed about something. They don't have something they need in order to be successful, so they act out because of it, because they're trying to deflect. And then if we find that out in our investigation, doesn't excuse the behavior. You still get the punitive consequence for your action, but you also are going to get what you need now to be successful and hopefully not make that decision again. Reparations and restitution, going back to that example with the theater class, if that is what's found and the student is located and we have a preponderance of evidence that that student is the person that did it, or those students, multiple if that's the case, those students are responsible to replace those items. That is vandalism. That is real life. If you do that in public, you have to do that. So we ask that whichever department that comes from, if it's a piece of technology then provides us with what the cost would be to repair or replace that item, and then we apply that to the student account, and we have that conversation with the family. And if that's a payment plan, or if that's a lump sum, or however we want to do that, that's what ends up happening. We see that most often right now with Chromebooks. If there's a lack of care, it's not necessarily the intentional damage, like throwing it out a window. That's extreme. But if they don't intentionally care for their Chromebook the right way, they may have to pay reparations for bits and pieces of it. The keyboard gets messed up, or the screen protector or something. So we do that on the regular. Monitoring trends and hosting challenges is one of our favorite things to do. So if we see an uptick in tardies, then we know that we need to maybe put something in place to encourage students to get to class, and we do our tardy challenge or our on-time challenge. So we award PBIS rewards points. Students earn them. They get entered into raffles, and they get access to certain events and can purchase different things with those reward points. And we do that with anything that we see trending. And then recognize students with the Tier 1 intervention with just PBIS rewards. Everybody can earn them. And then core values awards, and I'll share on a subsequent screen some of the other recognitions that we have in mind. And then that's actually one of the groups tonight. So some of our accomplishments just since the last meeting that we had 2.5 weeks ago, we do now have a volunteer sign-up button on the CMS webpage, and that was to increase the accessibility for parents and family members and community members of students that aren't necessarily getting the school messenger Sunday communication. So now it's not just families that are receiving that can sign up to be volunteers here. They just have to go through the volunteer process, which is not that hard. Our HR department makes that incredibly easy for folks. So you can do that now just from the webpage. You don't have to get those communications weekly. We've also designed and developed a plan to push out on the 1st of every month, except for January because we're not here on the 1st of that month, but on the 9th of that month. We will push out a monthly grade level newsletter to sum up what students are learning at each grade level and each content. So there's no question as to, what is going on in 7th grade English right now. It's figurative language and poetic terms, and that's what we're focusing on. And we're going to be reading this novel in order to access that material. And then there will be some resources for each of those contents if you want to help your student at home practice those things. And it does that for all the contents, as well as important dates coming up for students and families, and any extra reminders that you may need to know, and a goal-setting tip. So students that maybe felt like they could do better, maybe they got a B or a C on their report card and they want to get a B or an A instead, it's a goal-setting tip at the bottom there to help them out with that. We also had our first Student Government Association cabinet meeting, and our president is going to be presenting this month at the school board meeting, so please make sure you tune in for that because he's working really, really hard. He actually inquired and has set up a meeting with all the admin as well as Mr. Clark, our athletic director, tomorrow to go over kind of his plans for the year and how he would like to set up regular meetings to touch base on how to push through bills and make change at school. So they met already. He's going to meet with us tomorrow, and we're going to set that up for the rest of the year. So we're super proud of him. And then 3 additional volunteers this past 2.5 weeks have signed up to volunteer from the meeting. And that was in addition to the other 4 that we had on there. So it did increase slightly. It's only been 2.5 weeks. I think 3 additional people signing up that hadn't signed up for anything before is wonderful. And 17 total, I believe, events were signed up for it was a total of 8. Yes, 8 people. So I think that's wonderful. We did push out the November one. If you have not seen that yet, it is on our Facebook page as well as the button on the web page and in the newsletter. So some of the things that are a work in progress that we just weren't quite ready to say are done yet in that accomplishment slide are a parent volunteer survey. We drafted some questions we would like to push out to families to better engage them and ask their opinion. What do you want to offer? What times do you want to see on that volunteer sign-up sheet? And then maybe that would help get them in. And if it's not time here physically in the building, because that's really hard for a lot of people, Personally, I don't go to my son's schools as much as I would love to because I'm here with your guys' kids. So With that being said, I can offer things like send things to the class or the food pantry or whatever. If that's stuff that you need to see on the volunteer sign up, this is the survey to put that on. So we are designing that now. The intent is to have staff eyes on it and create it, and then we're going to push it out to a sample size of our invested community members and parents to put a second look on it to make sure it's the questions that they would want to see on a survey like this, and then we'll push it out to all families. We are going to implement weekly morning meetings, and I'm looking around. I think I saw Miss Honeycutt popped in here earlier, but she's back there. I know she's going to be upset with me calling her out, but Miss Honeycutt presented to our staff just this week at that faculty meeting yesterday to share the idea that their Brave team came up with, and there are set dates weekly throughout the rest of the year to mimic that morning meeting that elementary school students have, where they discuss a topic that is important and trending, and they have to basically work through a problem together as a class, and it's a discussion that they have. So those topics have been picked and the dates have been pre-planned, and that is getting pushed out to our staff soon. Eagle Flight Clubs, so they are going to push out the in-building clubs that will be hosted on the Thursdays after the 2-hour delay day. And that means students don't have to ride an activity bus home to participate in something that they love with students of a common interest. So everyone will have that sense of belonging and find something that they like. And every staff member, every instructional staff member is going to host one of these. And so that means that we'll have smaller groups and a lot of variety, which is great. Attendance and recognition and behavior incentives, we are going to devise a plan for that. So I would love for whoever chose that color topic to please have that focus under the student recognition one. Those are some things that we want to get. We have some ideas, but we want to get some outside ideas as well. And then monthly data dive in the newsletter. So it's difficult to pull this in-depth data daily or weekly, but it's not so hard to do it monthly. And I'd really like to share that more often with you all. So right now what we're doing is determining the best way we can provide a digestible piece of data in the newsletter monthly, and that can also be shared through the newsletter on our Facebook page, as not everybody gets that email communication. So those are some of the things that we are working on now. So what I would like to hear, or walk around and hear, is on the table last time we had our CMS Parent Asks, and each time a new topic was brought up, you all checked, Dr. Calveric asked you all to check something that maybe you would like to try to do. Not all of these require a commitment of time inside the building, but if you could take a look at that and just turn and talk with your neighbor or your table mates and share something that you have done already or you're planning to do, just to refresh our memories and get our juices flowing. Yeah, we'll do 1 minute. If you could just turn and talk to a table mate or a partner. Same. All right, we're going to come back together as a group. Oh, sure. Yes. We're getting asked for one more minute. All right, that was about a minute. We're going to draw it back together. Hopefully, the first thing that everybody said was that they came to this because we were really, really excited to offer this second opportunity to get together and have more of a discussion, which we're wanting to save about 55 minutes to an hour for, to have those tabletop discussions and problem solve and talk about what's on your heart, and then pick some things that maybe we can start trying to do and feasibly put into place to make that difference. So then we will get to give our input on the groups that we didn't choose as a passion project, because I know it was probably a tough decision. And I'm going to pass it over now to Dr. Neighbors, and she's going to give us our instructions for the group activity.
All right, you've been listening and sitting, and now it's time to do the work. Thank you, because that's really what this is about. We've come, we've heard, we've shared, and we want you to continue to share. Right? This isn't like we heard at the last town hall meeting, and now things are going to evolve, but we need to also get some action steps going, because that's how we can feel progress is being made. Because if we can sit around and talk about it, man, I could do that all day. But it's really when we can say we've done this and this has happened and we've seen some progress. And that's what we want our students to feel. Thank you for students that are here. And that's what we want our staff to feel. And that's what we want our community to feel. So that's our goal for today, is to now really get into the action items. So all of you have grabbed a colored-coded piece, chart paper, not action item. Can I grab yours? I'm a visual learner here. All right, so you have one of these. So we're going to get in groups. And the first thing we're going to do is take just 5 minutes to look at the top. We took all of those trends and action items that Dr. Herndon and Ms. Fry, if you were here at the last meeting, charted over here. We took all of those and put them in a document and sent those out. And then we looked at what ones have we actually done something about. E-Hall Pass. So Ms. Griggs reported out on some of those things we've already taken some action on. It was kind of like, this is a clear concern, let's do something about it now. And then there's some things where like, we don't know, like, what are the best actions for these items? How are we going to address, this is the SEL one, bullying and fights? What are some things that we can do with bullying? What do our students need? What does our staff need? So this is where we want the think tank, which is all of you here, to think about those things. So all these ones listed, bulleted at the top, are ones that, okay, these are some trends that we need to make some action items around. What does that look like? So we want you to spend 5 minutes to think about those. And then with your group, to start brainstorming, what are some things that we can do? What are some action items? And so have those conversations. What would that look like? Think about, okay, if we do this, what would be the outcome for students? What would be the outcome for families? What would be the outcome for teachers? What would be the outcome for the admin? Think about all the different angles. Take some time and talk it through. And you're not going to all agree on it, and that's okay, because that's life, and that's what we want to teach our kids, right? How do we have productive conversations? So have those conversations. And then we're going to stop you and say, okay, you all need to start to reach some consensus. No more than 5, but you only get 1 or 2, and that's fine too. What are some really tangible action items that your group can suggest? And then we have chart paper. Thank you. What we'll do is come around to each group, and we've taken those action sheets there. Thank you, Vanna. And we put them on larger paper. So once you decide, we're gonna make this public now. Here's my 1, 2, 3 ideas that our group has come up with. And then we're gonna move at the very end. We're gonna give you each dots. And so, yes, you've talked about just your group. I'm in the SEL group, and we've talked about this, but I really want to know what the student recognition group has done. You're going to have an opportunity at the end to go around to each of those and say, I really like that idea, and give some input to the other groups too. So you're going to have deep voice around the content you picked, the group you picked, but you're still going to have a voice around all of the ideas. And then we'll come back and summarize those. So that's our work time together. Does anyone have any questions on what we're asking you to do? All right. Yes.
All right, just so our conversations don't impede on each other's conversations, we do have the colored papers are aligned with a poster and dots in a different location spread throughout. So there's going to be 2 groups in here and 2 groups in NPR 7, which is this door that's open over here, just so that we're able to spread out and have conversation and not be kind of trying to hear over the other side conversation. So we will have blue and orange. If you picked a blue or an orange paper, you're going to go into NPR 7. And if you have pink or yellow, you're going to stay in here. And you're going to be with those like people.
I know it's weird just picking a microphone. And if you did not pick up paper, you can still pick one now. So if you haven't picked your group, you can grab one at the front.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back. Thank you for entertaining the DOT protocol. That's going to help us kind of consolidate our efforts. Just at a quick glance, it does look like the teams did a really great job consolidating their thoughts into just a couple. We did leave 5 spaces for 5 different action items, hoping that 2 or 3 would maybe gain the traction from the whole group. But it's looking like we may be able to feasibly implement a piece, a portion, or a whole part of the ideas that you all came up with tonight. So I want to just share some quick next steps and actions that will happen from this point forward, so that you don't think that this was just an opportunity for you to come put stickers on a poster and have conversations with people that are like-minded. So want to share that we will be giving these topic posters to our Brave teams that meet monthly, and we will review them to see what are we already kind of doing like that, where can we adjust, where can we apply these things. Several folks in this room are on a Brave team. All of the administrators are, all the staff members that are here are, obviously, and several of the parents are a part of that Brave initiative, and they join us on those monthly meetings as their schedules allow. And they're also on that steering team that comes in and meets quarterly to reflect on the work that's been done and kind of where we go from there as well. So we're constantly monitoring this progress, and having more hands in the pot makes a little bit lighter work for the whole. So we will take those back. So that's step 1. We're going to take those back and share those so we can have action surrounding them. Additionally, we will share out, similar to the last town hall, the recording as well as any supporting documents. So everyone will get a chance to see this action plan that you all used, but the smaller version. That'll be sent out to families of CMS, but also folks that attended here. We will send that based on the sign-in sheet and the email that you gave. So if you don't have students in this building and you're not associated with that school messenger that will go out to the CMS families and the CCPS families, you will get it through that email address that you used for the sign-in sheet. We'll send out a separate communication with the exact content to them as well. So if somebody slipped out, they'll get that. They'll get all of this in the closure part as well. Do what? by Monday, close of business. So we'll have a team feverishly working to get it all ready to go public and live and consolidated down into a single document, so you're not having to look at open multiple documents for easy viewing. We do, again, appreciate your work and your time. Please continue to, if you drive home today, this is certainly not the last opportunity you have today, tomorrow, this week, next week, to share any ideas that may pop into your head. We all have email addresses, all the admin that were here, and our school board leadership that was here tonight. So please make sure that you're just keeping that constant communication. And if we decide that we want to come back, I heard maybe some brainstorming about some additional time to discuss one particular topic in general at a one session type thing where we could still break out into smaller groups, but everybody's talking about that same topic, and then maybe mix and mingle so that we are able to share each other's ideas but still have that small group setting so more voices heard. We may want to do that as well, because there were some more pressing items than others tonight, and we acknowledge that. So with that being said, again, thank you everyone for your cooperation, your participation, and your support and concern for our students and our staff and our community as a whole. We appreciate it, and we hope that you have a good, safe night. Take care.